1. Let me tell you about this 1972 Chevy C10 Cheyenne Super that's popped up on Facebook Marketplace. Being completely honest with you, this is an interesting find at $13,000, and I want to give you the full picture. This Arizona-born truck has covered 85,678 original miles, which is pretty reasonable for its age. It's powered by a 350 small block Chevy engine paired with a TH350 automatic transmission, and it's got 3.73 gears with a Posey traction rear end, a solid drivetrain combination. Let's be upfront about the issues. The transmission has some leaks and needs new seals. The AC needs a charge, and there's no radio installed. There's also some body damage to consider, specifically rust on the driver's door and cab corner. These are typical issues for a truck of this age, but they're important to know about. On the positive side, it comes with power steering and power disc brakes, which are desirable features for the Cheyenne Super Trim level. The truck got new tires last year, and the seller's throwing in some nice extras like NOS, new old stock headliner and trim pieces for the upper body and tailgate. For $13,000, you're looking at a mostly original classic truck that needs some attention but isn't a basket case. The Arizona Heritage suggests it's probably avoided the worst of rust issues that typically plague these trucks, aside from the mentioned spots. It's not perfect, but it's a solid starting point for someone looking for a classic C10, especially with the desirable Cheyenne Super Trim. I'd say this is a project that you could drive while you improve it, rather than a full restoration case. Just keep in mind, you'll need to budget for those transmission seals and other minor fixes to get it into top shape. 2. Let me tell you about this 1978 Ford F-150 I found on Facebook Marketplace. At $8,000, we're looking at a classic pickup truck with just over 1,000 miles on the odometer, which is remarkably low for a vehicle of this age. It's rocking a green-on-green color scheme, both inside and out, which was a pretty typical combo for these late 70s Fords. Under the hood, you've got a gas engine paired with an automatic transmission, making it an easy driver. The 78 F-150 was part of the 6th generation F-Series, 1973-1979, and these trucks were built tough. They're known for their durability and straightforward mechanics. Without more details from the seller's description, I can't speak to its specific condition or maintenance history, but these old Fords are generally pretty serviceable and parts are still readily available. At $8,000, you're in the ballpark for a decent condition 78 F-150, though prices can vary widely based on condition and modifications. If you're interested, I'd definitely recommend checking for rust, especially in the cab corners and bed, making sure the frame is solid, and giving that transmission a good test. These trucks are becoming increasingly collectible, and if it's as clean as the low mileage suggests, it could be worth looking into. 3. Let me tell you about this interesting 1978 Chevy Silverado Big Ten I found on Marketplace. At $8,500, you're looking at a piece of classic American trucking history with some modern touches. This brown beauty has covered just 74,336 miles, which is surprisingly low for a truck of this age. The seller's been pretty upfront about everything, which I appreciate. Under the hood, you've got the reliable 350 engine paired with a turbo 350 transmission. Now there is a transmission fluid leak, but the seller's honest about it, and they mention it still shifts great. The truck's been lowered with a C-notch and sits on some pretty serious US mag wheels, 20 inches with low-profile tires that give it a modern stance. What really catches my eye is the condition. It's remarkably rust-free, which is rare for a 78. The body's straight and clean, and all the vulnerable spots like cab corners, rockers, and floors are solid. You're getting original paint with that sought-after patina look that you just can't fake. Everything electrical works, even the cab light, which is often dead in these old trucks. And it's got some nice features like tilt steering, and power brakes. The interior's tan, and you've still got the original radio in there. For the asking price, you're getting a well-preserved classic that's been modernized in the right ways while keeping its character intact. Sure, you'll need to address that transmission leak, but that's pretty typical for a truck of this age. It's a solid cruiser that combines vintage charm with some modern flair. 4. Let me tell you about this sweet 1966 Chevy C10 I found on Marketplace. For $10,000, you're looking at a classic truck that's been thoughtfully restored as a daily driver, and there's quite a bit to unpack here. This blue C10 has an interesting story. The current owner got it as a roller, basically just a shell, about a decade ago, and built it up from there. They've put in some serious work, starting with a rebuilt 283 V8 that's been upgraded with a cam, power pack heads, and ram horn manifolds. The dual exhaust with Flowmasters probably gives it a really nice rumble. The drivetrain is pretty much all fresh. You've got a rebuilt turbo 350 transmission with a shift kit, a brand new drive shaft with a new carrier bearing, and a stout 12-bolt rear end with 3.73 gears and a Posey traction differential. That's a solid combination for both reliability and performance. The suspension has been completely rebuilt, and while it's running manual brakes, which was standard for 66, they've been refreshed with new hoses and shocks. With 50,000 miles showing, this truck has plenty of life left in it. What I really like about this build is that it seems to have been done with daily driving in mind. It's not some over-the-top show truck, but rather a well-sorted classic that you could actually use. The tan interior and blue exterior make for a classic color combination, and the clean title is always a plus. For 10 grand, you're getting a turnkey classic truck that's been mechanically sorted and ready to roll. It's the kind of build that lets you enjoy a vintage truck without the headaches of starting from scratch. 5. Let me tell you about this interesting 1985 Chevy El Camino I found on Marketplace for $15,000. I've got to be straight with you. The 300,000 miles on the odometer is definitely something to consider, but don't let that number scare you away just yet. This red El Camino with black interior has clearly been well maintained and updated. The sellers invested in pretty much everything you'd want to see in a high-mileage vehicle. New brakes, fresh suspension, new tires, and they've even got the AC working, which is a big deal for a Texas car. The interior's been mostly renewed, and it's got some nice creature comforts like power windows and locks, plus a new stereo system. The paint job is 5 years old, so it should still look pretty fresh, and the transmission has been rebuilt. It's still running its original 305 engine, which speaks to these cars' durability, even with the high mileage. Now, let's talk about that $15,000 price tag. While it's on the higher side for an 85 El Camino with this many miles, you're getting a vehicle that's had most of its wear items addressed. It's basically ready to keep cruising as a daily driver, which is exactly what these car trucks were built for. The seller seems to be a reputable marketplace user with good ratings, and they're being clear about the car's status. No trades, cash only, and it's available in Kyle, Texas. If you're looking for a classic El Camino that you can actually use daily without immediate major repairs, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to verify all the recent work that's been done. 6. Let's talk about this 1983 Chevy C10 I found on Marketplace for $3,000, and I've got to be completely honest with you. This one's definitely a project truck. The seller's being pretty upfront about its condition. It doesn't run, which is the biggest red flag right off the bat. What we're looking at is a long bed C10 with a 350 small block engine that's been modified with long tube headers and a cam, though the seller doesn't know the specs on the cam, which is a bit concerning. It's got a 4L60 transmission, and with 100,000 miles on the clock, at least the mileage isn't astronomical for its age. The black exterior and red interior could be an interesting combination if it's in decent shape, but remember, this is a non-running vehicle. At $3,000, you're essentially buying a project that's going to need some serious mechanical attention to get back on the road. The seller's open to trades, which suggests they're motivated to move it. Look, if you're handy with tools and looking for a Project C10 to wrench on, this might be worth checking out. But go into this knowing you're buying someone else's unfinished project, and you'll need to invest time, money, and effort to get it running. These C10s are great trucks when they're sorted out, but this one's definitely got some needs that'll need addressing before it moves under its own power again. 7. Let's talk about this 1985 Chevy S10 that's listed for $6,000, and I'm going to be completely straight with you about what we're looking at here. This is definitely a modified truck with some interesting features, but it also has some significant issues you need to know about. The heart of this build is a 383-stroker small block paired with a 350 turbo transmission, which is a potent combination for a little S10. It's got an air slam-it airbag suspension system with an 8-inch monster notch, so it can lay really low, and the airbag system is reportedly working properly. Now, let's get real about the rough spots, and there are quite a few. The truck's mostly in black primer, and those front fenders are apparently loaded with Bondo, which is usually a red flag for previous damage or rust repair. There's no AC, no heat, and no radio, so we're talking bare bones here. The fuel system has been modified with a 20-gallon cell relocated to the bed. At least it's got a tri-fold vinyl cover. The biggest immediate concerns are that it needs a new starter and flywheel to get running properly. The 15,000 miles shown is likely just since the engine swap, not the actual chassis mileage. At $6,000, you're buying a project that's got some good bones with that 383 setup and air suspension, but it needs work. The seller's willing to trade for a good running and driving vehicle, which tells you something about its current state. If you're into modified trucks and don't mind some wrenching, this could be interesting. Just go in knowing it's not a finished product by any means. 8. I need to be completely honest here. This listing for a 1978 Ford E250 at $14,500 is quite confusing and concerning. The seller's description is nearly incomprehensible, which is a major red flag when dealing with any vehicle purchase. What we can make out is that it's a gray E250 van showing 44,358 miles. But given the age of the vehicle, I'd be skeptical about whether those are original miles. The seller seems to be interested in trading for a 2010 or newer Tahoe, but beyond that, the description is extremely unclear. The price of $14,500 seems quite high for a 1978 E250 without any clear information about its condition, modifications, or maintenance history. The lack of interior color information and the cryptic description make this listing highly suspicious. I have to say, I wouldn't recommend pursuing this vehicle without getting much more detailed information and a clear explanation from the seller. When someone can't or won't provide clear information about a vehicle they're selling, it's usually best to walk away. If you're in the market for a vintage van, there are likely better options available with more transparent sellers and clearer histories. Remember, a clear, well-written description is often a reflection of how well a vehicle has been maintained. In this case, the confusing listing raises too many questions to justify the asking price. 9. Let me tell you about this interesting 1975 Ford F-250 Highboy I found on Marketplace. First off, the asking price of $14,500 seems quite high compared to the seller's $5,000 oboe mention in the description, so there might be a listing error there. This is a pretty cool piece of Ford truck history. It's a genuine highboy, which means it's got that distinctive factory lift, and it's apparently a one-owner vehicle, which is pretty rare for a truck this age. The white exterior with black interior is a classic combo, and it comes with a snowplow, making it a potentially useful work truck. Under the hood, there's a rebuilt 360 V8 with a 4-barrel 650 Edelbrock carburetor, which should provide plenty of power. It's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which is what you want in these old workhorses. The glass pack duals probably give it that classic muscle truck sound that these old Fords are known for. What's particularly interesting is that it's reportedly a one-owner truck with a clean title and no significant problems. That's pretty remarkable for a vehicle that's nearly 50 years old. However, I'd still recommend a thorough inspection, especially of the plow mount areas, as these trucks often saw hard use in winter conditions. At $5,000, assuming that's the correct price, you're looking at a classic work truck with some desirable features. The Highboy models have a strong following, and if this one's as solid as described, it could be a good buy for someone looking for a vintage Ford with some utility value. Remember to verify the actual asking price with the seller, as there's quite a discrepancy between the listing price and the description. These old highboys are getting harder to find, especially in one-owner condition, so it's worth checking out if you're in the market for a classic Ford truck. 10. I need to point out something right away. There seems to be a mistake in this listing because the Chevrolet S10 wasn't actually introduced until 1982. What we're likely looking at here is a 1979 Chevrolet C10 or possibly another Chevy truck model from that era. That being said, let's talk about what's being offered for $11,500. It's a white truck with a blue interior showing 43,977 miles, though at this age, you'll want to verify if those are original miles. The seller mentions it's a V8 model with a Holley Sniper EFI system, which is actually a pretty nice upgrade that modernizes the fuel delivery and can improve both reliability and performance. The condition seems to be generally good with a clean title, but there are some issues to consider. The AC system needs attention. It's not blowing cold air, though the heater works. That's something you might want to factor into the asking price. The custom deluxe trim level typically meant it came with some nice features for its time. But remember, this is still a 44-year-old truck. The $11,500 asking price is in the higher range for these trucks, but the Holley Sniper EFI system is a valuable addition that could justify some of that cost. One of the biggest advantages of this truck is the Holley Sniper EFI system. It's a significant upgrade from the original carburetor setup. This modern fuel injection system provides better cold starts, improved fuel economy, and more consistent performance. It's not a cheap modification, often costing $1,000 to $1,500 plus installation, so that adds real value to the truck. The white exterior with blue interior is a classic combination that was popular in these trucks, and if it's original, it could indicate a well-preserved example. The mileage shown is relatively low for its age, but as with any classic vehicle, you'll want to verify the maintenance history and check for any signs of restoration or repairs. If you're interested in this truck, I'd recommend clarifying the exact model with the seller, getting some detailed photos of the undercarriage, and maybe having a mechanic look it over. These old Chevys are great trucks when properly maintained, but you'll want to know exactly what you're getting into at this price point. Pay special attention to common rust areas like the cab corners, rocker panels, and bed floor. Remember, while $11,500 might seem steep, finding a clean, well-maintained example of these classic Chevys is getting harder every year, and the modern EFI upgrade makes this one particularly interesting. Just make sure to do your due diligence before making any decisions. 11. Let me tell you about this 1978 Chevy 2500 that's up for grabs at $2,200. I've got to be straight with you, this is definitely a project truck, but there might be some potential here for the right person. First off, that 5,157 miles showing is almost certainly after a reset or from a replacement cluster. This is a 45-year-old truck after all. It's rocking an orange exterior with a tan interior, which could be an interesting combo if you clean it up. The good news is that it runs and drives, powered by a 350 engine with an automatic transmission. The seller's done some recent mechanical work that's worth noting: new carburetor, tune-up, valve cover gaskets, valve adjustment, fuel pump, starter, and alternator. That's actually a decent amount of maintenance that helps justify the asking price. Now let's be honest about the rough spots. And there are a few. The seller admits there are rust issues, though they claim they're fixable. There's also some questionable previous bodywork that needs attention. This isn't a truck that's ready for the show circuit. It's more of a drive it while you fix it situation. At $2,200, you're looking at an entry-level price for a running and driving square-body Chevy. These trucks have a strong following, and parts are readily available. The seller seems honest about the truck's condition and is motivated to sell due to having too many projects. We've all been there. If you're handy with tools and looking for an affordable project truck that you can actually drive while you work on it, this might be worth checking out. Just go into it knowing you'll be dealing with rust repair and some bodywork corrections down the line. 12. Let's talk about this 1969 GMC 3.4-ton truck that's listed for $6,800. There's some confusion in the listing that we need to address first. There's a discrepancy between the 800,000 miles shown in one part and the 80,000 miles mentioned in the description, so that's something you definitely want to clarify with the seller. This is an interesting piece of classic truck history. a turquoise and blue color combination that was pretty typical for these late 60s GMCs. Under the hood, you've got the 327 V8 engine, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission, which was a solid powertrain combination for these workhorses. The 8-foot bed gives you plenty of hauling capacity, typical for these old farm trucks. The seller describes it as running and driving excellent for being this age, which is a pretty honest way to put it. After all, we're talking about a 54-year-old truck here. It's got a clean title and reportedly no major accidents, which is good news. At $6,800, you're in the ballpark for these classic GMCs, especially if it's in solid running condition. These old farm trucks are getting harder to find, particularly ones that haven't been completely worn out. The two-wheel drive configuration makes it simpler mechanically, which can be a good thing for long-term maintenance. However, given its age and likely history as a farm truck, you'll want to do a thorough inspection of the frame, bed, and cab corners for rust. These were working trucks after all. Also, definitely get clarity on that mileage discrepancy before making any decisions. If you're looking for a classic 3-4-ton truck with some character and don't mind something that might need some TLC, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to verify its condition in person and get the real story on those miles. 13. Let's talk about this 1969 Ford F-100 that's listed for $6,900, and I'm going to be completely honest about what we're looking at here. This is a short bed F-100, which is a desirable configuration, powered by a 351 Windsor engine, paired with a manual transmission from a Mustang. That's an interesting combination that could be fun when sorted out. The green and white color scheme is a classic look for these old Fords. However, let's be real about the condition. This is definitely a project truck. The seller's being upfront about several issues. There's rust in the front fenders and tailgate, which is pretty common for these old Fords but still needs to be addressed. More importantly, there's a leaking brake cylinder, which means this truck really shouldn't be driven until that's fixed. The seller honestly recommends trailering it, which is the safe way to go. At $6,900, you're paying for the potential here rather than a ready-to-roll classic. The 351 Windsor is a great engine, and the Mustang manual transmission swap could be interesting, but you're looking at some immediate expenses with the brakes and bodywork. If you're handy with tools and looking for a project F-100, this could be a good starting point. These short bed models are getting harder to find. Just go into it knowing you'll need to invest more money and time to get it roadworthy. Make sure to check the frame and other common rust areas beyond what's already mentioned before making a decision. 14. Let me tell you about this 1973 Chevy K10 that's up for grabs at $5,500. This is actually a pretty interesting find because it's reportedly an unmolested original custom deluxe K10 4x4, which is getting harder to find these days. The truck comes in its original burnt orange paint with an off-white interior, and it's showing 59,000 miles. Under the hood, you've got the classic 350 small block paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's a robust, desirable combination for these trucks. Being a K10, it's got 4-wheel drive with 12-volt front and rear ends, and it even has its factory-installed running lights intact. Now, let's be honest about what you're getting here. The seller mentions it needs a tune-up, so factor that into your plans. While they say it has no significant damage or problems, remember, this is a 50-year-old truck we're talking about. The fact that it's basically all original could be both a blessing and a curse. Original is great for authenticity, but it also means you're dealing with 50-year-old components throughout. At $5,500, you're looking at a fair price for an original K10, especially if the body and frame are solid. These trucks have a strong following, and finding one that hasn't been heavily modified is becoming rare. The custom deluxe trim level means it came with some nice features for its time. If you're interested in a classic 4x4 that you can either preserve as is or use as a foundation for a build, this could be a good candidate. Just make sure to check all the usual rust spots and verify the 4-wheel drive system's condition before making a decision. The tune-up needed is just the starting point. Plan on going through all the basic systems if you want to make it a reliable driver. 15. Let's talk about this 1985 Dodge W250 that's listed for $9,500. This is actually a pretty interesting truck because it's got some features that diesel enthusiasts really look for. First off, let's clear up that two-stroke diesel mention. This would be equipped with the legendary 6BT Cummins diesel engine, which is often referred to as a 12-valve, though it's technically a 4-stroke engine. These engines are highly sought after for their reliability and potential for modification. Paired with the Spicer 5-speed manual transmission, this is a powertrain combination that many diesel enthusiasts dream about. The truck comes in black on black, and being a W250 means it's got 4-wheel drive, which adds to its desirability. The seller has provided the VIN, which is always a good sign for transparency. What's interesting here is that the seller isn't necessarily looking to sell outright. They're testing the waters for trades, specifically looking for other manual diesel vehicles. This usually suggests the truck is in decent running condition, as people typically don't try to trade problematic vehicles for other running ones. At $9,500, if this truck is solid and the Cummins is running well, it could actually be a fair price. These old Dodge diesels, especially with manual transmissions, have a strong following and are getting harder to find in original condition. However, being a 1985 model, you'll want to check thoroughly for rust and wear, as these were often used as work trucks. If you're into classic diesel trucks, this could be worth checking out. Just make sure to do a thorough inspection of the body, frame, and mechanical components before making any decisions. These trucks are known for their durability, but they're also approaching 40 years old now. 16. Let me tell you about this 1985 GMC 3500 crew cab that's listed for $5,000, and I've got to say, this one's pretty interesting. What we're looking at here is a 2WD crew cab with the mighty 454 big block V8 paired with a manual transmission. That's already a pretty desirable combination. The truck shows 73,108 miles, but here's where it gets better. The engine's been recently rebuilt with only 30K on it, and the seller has done some serious work here. Let's talk about all the fresh parts and work that's been done. New oil pump, water pump, fan hub, clutch and flywheel. The seller went the extra mile by pulling and cleaning up all the underhood wiring, which is often a mess on these old trucks. And they've put on new AT tires all around. What's particularly impressive is that they took the time to inspect the rods and mains during the engine work. That's the kind of attention to detail you want to see. The blue-on-blue color combination is classic for these mid-80s GMCs, and being an all-original truck, aside from the maintenance work, is a big plus. Crew cab models from this era are getting harder to find, especially ones that haven't been worked to death. At $5,000, considering all the recent mechanical work and the fact that it's a crew cab with a 454, this actually seems like a pretty solid deal. The seller's no-trade stance usually suggests they know what they have and are firm on the price. These trucks are known for their durability, and with all the recent maintenance, this one could be a reliable workhorse or a great foundation for a build. Just remember to check the usual rust spots and verify all the recent work. But if everything checks out, this could be a really good buy for someone looking for a solid classic crew cab with some serious power under the hood. 17. Let me tell you about this 1980 Chevy truck that's listed for $3,200. And this one's definitely built for some serious off-road action. Under the hood, you've got a small block 400 engine paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which the seller says runs and shifts great. But the real story here is all the off-road modifications. Let's break down the build. It's got a Dana 44 front axle that's been welded, which means it's locked for better off-road traction, but will be less friendly on the street, and has been moved forward 1.5 inches with a 52-inch spring swap. The rear end is a heavy-duty 14-bolt with 4-inch leaf springs and a shackle flip for better articulation. It's rolling on some serious rubber, 39-inch BFG KM3s mounted on 17-inch wheels. That's a pretty aggressive setup. The truck appears to be red, though there's no mention of the interior color. At $3,200, you're not paying for a show truck here. You're getting a purpose-built off-road rig. The seller is open to trades, specifically mentioning Toyota, which suggests they might be looking for something more practical for daily use. This is definitely not your typical grocery getter. It's built for the trails and mud. If you're looking for a dedicated off-road truck with some serious modifications already done, this could be interesting. Just keep in mind that with the welded front diff and those big tires, it's not going to be the most comfortable daily driver. Also, make sure to check all the welds and modifications thoroughly, as custom work can vary in quality. For the right buyer, who understands what they're getting into, $3,200 could be a decent deal for all the parts that are on it. Just remember, this is a purpose-built off-road machine, not a restored classic truck. 18. Let me tell you about this 1984 Ford F-250 4Acre-4 that's up for grabs for $2,800, and I'm going to be completely honest about what we're dealing with here. The seller's being pretty upfront about this truck's condition, which I appreciate. It's a red-on-red F-250 4R4 showing 53,937 miles, though at this age, that number might not tell the whole story. Under the hood, you've got the HO, high output, 351 engine, which has been modified with a newer high-rise intake and Holley carburetor. They've also done some recent maintenance with a fresh tune-up, new distributor, alternator, and regulator. Now let's talk about the issues, and there are several. The engine is kinda tired and smokes, plus it burns oil that needs regular checking. That's usually a sign that the engine's getting close to needing a rebuild. There's surface rust on the roof and some dents, though the seller says it's pretty straight for its age. The brakes need work, but at least the parts come with the truck. However, it's worth noting that this truck recently made a decent trip from Port Angeles to Everett, so it's still roadworthy despite its issues. The HO 351 is a desirable engine, and the 4x4 system adds value. At $2,800, you're looking at a project truck that you could probably drive while you work on it. The seller's honest about having too many projects and needing to thin the herd. We've all been there. If you're mechanically inclined and looking for a classic F-250 4R4 to wrench on, this could be a decent starting point. Just go into it knowing you'll need to address that smoking engine and brake issue sooner rather than later. For the right person who understands old trucks and isn't afraid of some work, this could be a worthwhile project. Just make sure to budget for that engine work that's likely in your future. 19. This 1984 Dodge D150 pickup truck is available for $4,000. It has a manual transmission, a gray exterior, and a blue interior. The truck runs on gasoline and has had more than 3 owners. The seller reports that it has been driven for 150,000 miles, but the odometer is not functioning, so the actual mileage is unknown. However, the engine has been replaced and only has about 30,000 miles on it. The truck comes with a clean title and is fully paid off. The seller notes several positive features, including the new motor, 4x4 capabilities, smoker windows, a new gas tank, and bright headlights. However, there are also numerous issues that potential buyers should be aware of. The truck has a small hole in the radiator and the power steering belt is broken. The passenger side door panel is off due to a problem with the window track. The speedometer, gas gauge, and temperature gauge are not working. There is no heat or air conditioning in the vehicle. The seats are torn up and the windshield is cracked. The truck has a large dent on the driver's side and another on the tailgate. It still has its original tires, which likely need to be replaced. The driver's side mirror and the rear view mirror are also missing. While the newly replaced engine is a significant selling point, it's important for potential buyers to carefully consider the numerous repairs and replacements that this truck needs. The price of $4,000 may seem attractive, but the cost of addressing all the mentioned issues could add up quickly. Interested buyers should thoroughly inspect the vehicle and weigh the costs of necessary repairs against the asking price to determine if this 1984 Dodge D150 is a worthwhile investment. 20. This 1985 Chevrolet C10 pickup truck, a classic example of the iconic square body style, is being offered for $14,000. It features an automatic transmission, a blue exterior, and a black interior. The truck has been driven just 53,611 miles and runs on gasoline. The seller reports that this C10 is in excellent condition and has undergone significant upgrades and maintenance. The truck has been fitted with a new Napa motor and the transmission has been recently rebuilt, providing peace of mind for the new owner. The seller also mentions that both the motor and transmission are still under warranty for a year, which adds an extra layer of protection for the buyer. In addition to the mechanical upgrades, the truck has been equipped with new rims and tires, enhancing both its appearance and performance. The windshield has also been replaced, ensuring clear visibility while driving. According to the seller, there are no issues with the truck, and it serves as a reliable daily driver. The seller also states that they have receipts for all the work that has been done on the vehicle, providing a clear record of its maintenance history. Given the truck's low mileage, recent upgrades, and overall excellent condition, the asking price of $14,000 seems reasonable for a well-maintained classic vehicle. The 1985 Chevrolet C10 is known for its durability, reliability, and classic styling, making it an attractive choice for enthusiasts and collectors alike. Potential buyers should still consider inspecting the vehicle in person and reviewing the mentioned receipts to confirm the work that has been done. However, based on the seller's description, this 1985 Chevrolet 1500 appears to be a strong contender for those in the market for a classic pickup truck in excellent condition.